You're listening to the Huddle Up Podcast with Chad Jensen and Zack Kelberman. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com and sound off. And now it's time to drop some knowledge.
Okay, we're live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment here while we bring on our Facebook community. Bear with us just one moment. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me as always, my partner in crime. You know him, you love him, my fellow football priest. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, kind of a tumultuous day, but as we were talking about right before we hopped on, we're like, dude, we need to be able to get on and talk some Broncos football for our own escape, for our own mental clarity and peace of mind. But how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, regardless of what's going on right now, we're going to stick to it being the Broncos tonight, as we always do, as we always have done. And there's a lot going on with the Broncos landscape, Chad. I think you hit it best when you said it's the biggest news story involving Denver, minus the Super Bowl, in the last 10 years. And we're hammering down and drilling down on that. We have front runners emerging. We have interviews being set up. We have candidates. We have speculation about Drew Lock's future. A lot going on in Denver that I know you want to focus on.
Absolutely. I mean, you know what? This is, for Zack and I, this is a profession, yes, all right, but it's also our escape. This is how we exercise our own demons, and this is how we get through each and every day as well, not only talking to each other, but being able to talk with you and engage in the conversation, what's on your mind. This is literally what we live for when we get out of bed every single day. So thank you for being with us. Tough day. So let's all just get together and talk some Broncos football. That's what we're here for. And speaking of that, Zack, Joe Ellis hinted around it on Tuesday during his press conference, and then he ended up sitting down with Mike Kliss after the fact. Luke Patterson had the article for us over at milehighhuddle.com and basically said that he does not foresee himself being around Denver as the CEO/team president after his contract expires in March of 2022. So Joe Ellis, John Elway, this is the last stand of John Elway. I mean, honestly, 2020 was the last stand of John Elway. But he's going to stay on for one more year and all, probably just one. We'll see how it shakes out for Elway. But it's looking like Elway and Ellis, when it's all said and done, probably going to ride off into the sunset together.
I wonder how much, I just thought of this, how much this has to do with the ownership situation. How much of it is not wanting, or Elway and Ellis not wanting to work under one of the Bolins, Brittany or Beth Bolin-Wallace, maybe an outside owner. It's weird, though. They're both kind of jumping ship at the same time because they were a package deal. They're getting out before a year in 22 where there's probably going to be new ownership in place. It seems like, what's the opposite of the band getting back together? The band kind of drifting apart, and that's what it seems like the Broncos hierarchy is doing right now. They don't have an owner in place technically. They don't have a GM technically yet, and the CEO is walking away after next season. So there's a lot up in the air in terms of the highest of the high in the Broncos front office. And it's interesting which domino falls first. Obviously the GM, then he's going to keep the head coach for this season, might have a new head coach next season, a new CEO, a lot of moving parts, Chad.
Yep, it's a fun time to be alive in terms of, you know, being a member of Broncos country. And I know the last 5 years have been painful, especially at times, but hey, the new leaf is being turned over. And it really feels like change is not just feels like change is coming. I mean, it's obvious. Change is here. And the Broncos, it would seem, we'll get to this here in just a few minutes, have zeroed in on a few front runners for the GM opening. And we'll get to that. So Joe Ellis, again, he's we'll see how ownership shakes out in the whole lawsuit, all that stuff. But depending on how and when that all gets resolved, it's looking like after March 2022, goodbye to Ellis. And that's also about the time Elway's contract is going to expire. So we're going to get into all that. We're going to get into these front runners, touch on basically the latest, who's actually interviewing, when are the interviews taking place, who do Zack and I want, who do Zack and I think are the best fit for this job, understanding the entire landscape and the way it has shifted now in Denver. We're going to get to that here in just a moment. Thanks to each and every one of you for joining us. I see we got a lot of questions and supers stacked up. Promise you we're going to get to that here in just a minute. John Buonabeast is on vacation, so Zach and I are holding down the fort. We'll try to keep it as smooth as John does in terms of getting to the supers and all the comments and stuff. But so bear with us, just knowing that John's on vacation. We're a 2-man operation tonight, so we'll get to all that in the chat. First, though, we got to take care of a little matter of business, starting with the sponsor of tonight's live stream pod.
Yes, tonight's live stream pod is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. Broncos country, gambling is now legal in the state of Colorado, as you well know. And if you're looking to make watching your favorite sports a little more interesting, sportsbetting.com is your no-brainer destination. Here's why. First of all, as we always mention, sharp odds and low juice. In-house bookmakers, they're not a third-party service. They have reduced juice and the best prices you will find out there of any site or marketplace. Hassle-free bonuses. This is big with a one-time rollover, which means the bonus money is yours after you bet it just one time, whereas other competitors range from 5 to 30 times. Big difference. Also, 24/7 live customer support. You are always getting a real person in the U.S., never a robot, always a real live human being. But here's the kicker. Right now, after you make your first deposit, sportsbetting.com will match it up to $750. That's $750 in free bet credits, guys. Plus, right now, with the NBA season in full swing, you'll get $25 in free bet credits as well on top of that. So head on over to sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on up to $750 in free bet credits and start 2021 off on the right foot.
Well done. See, already we're missing John because I forgot to throw this up while you were talking. There it is, gang. For those of us who are visual learners, there it is, sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. There's your URL. So a couple other quick things here, gang. Huddle Up Pod. This is how you connect with us on Twitter, @HuddleUpPod. Also the main account, @MileHighHuddle. My partner, Zack Kelberman, which, again, I do this every time, Zach. I record a video either with you or with Kim, and I forget to turn back on the display names, but there it is. You can see how to follow my partner, Zack Kelberman, @Kelberman NFL, myself, @Chad and Jensen, and our producer who is on vacation, John K. It's @John K MHH. You guys know him obviously as Buonabeast. And then also, guys, we want to gently turn your attention to the merch store, huddleuppod.com. Head on over there and get your swag on. Get yourself one of these trucker hats, MHH. There's face masks, there's hoodies, there's mugs, there's a little something for everybody. It's another way to support what we're doing here, and so many of you have. I mean, Zach, I think I speak for both of us when I say we were just blown away at the support for the merch store in 2020. So we're hopefully going to be able to put a little more TLC into adding new designs and products as we get into 2021. But again, it's just another way to support what we're doing here. But were you surprised at how outgoing everyone was supporting that merch store? I mean, I know it came from popular demand from the community that we created, but man, I was stunned.
I was blown away because we had an initial onslaught of orders as we thought we would, Chad, but it was consistent throughout the year. And when we added new products, those were being snapped up. And not just products that we added, but also Christie, Zachary Smouse, the fans' products. They were all sold pretty fast. We got an order the other day, Chad, from a superstar. And it's still ongoing. So we definitely appreciate it, guys. We're rolling out more this year, and we love you guys for your support.
Appreciate you. Also, our Facebook supporters, we got to remind you guys, on Sunday, all right, noon Mountain Time, that's 2 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday, noon, is the debut for our Facebook supporting community of Kelberman's Corner. We're going to have a fun little show set up for you. It's not going to be an hour long, but it's going to be a different feel, kind of a different flow to than what you're used to on these hour-long streams from Zach and myself or any of the other guys. But Zach's going to drop some hot takes, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3. We'll see. We'll have Kim on to host, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So our Facebook community, if you want to be in on that when we go live for that actual stream on Sunday at noon, go to facebook.com/milehighhuddle, click the blue button that says become a supporter. You'll be in like Flynn and be able to access that stream when we officially go live. All right. And then last thing, gang, if you're not able to patronize the merch store or, become a supporter or super chat superstar, it's all good. We are super grateful and stoked that you're with us here tonight or listening after the fact as an on-demand podcast. We do ask, though, these 3 things. This is how we ask that you participate in helping us. Number 1, subscribe. It's crucial on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast. Like this video, which is crucial on YouTube and Facebook. And then the litmus test is number 3. If we're doing a good job for you, we just ask that you share this video out there. Help us continue to grow. reach new Broncos fans just like you guys.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, Zach, let's grab this super, and then we got a few stacked up, and then we'll get to some of the topics here. And maybe these supers will, point us in that direction anyway. But we got one from Kenneth Booker. Appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you. It says, if a quarterback like Lance or Fields falls to number 9, what can we get in a trade back? And how far are you willing to trade back? That's a good question.
Depends on who's coming up for the quarterback. It depends on how far the Broncos were falling back. If it's, if you're falling from 9 to 12, you'll get maybe a second or a second and a third. But if you're going if a team is coming up from 22, let's say, to 9, you're going to get maybe a first round pick or a combination of picks or a player even. There's some value in the Broncos holding their ground in the draft at number 9 and seeing what quarterback falls to them. But depending on the general manager, Chad, whoever that may be for the Broncos, they might take a quarterback. So this question is hard to answer without Elway being the guy calling the shots in April.
Yeah, it really is. I still think, there was, I want to say I think it was Monday's show right after the hit the fan about Elway, and we got up and did the gut reaction to the Elway thing, stepping down basically. Even though he says he's being elevated and moving up and all that, we all know what it meant, right? Him and Matt Russell were, that's it. Excuse me. But the fact that Drew Lock, we said that night, I think it was me. I said before Elway stepped down, I would have given it like a 70% chance, 80% chance that Drew Lock was going to return. I know the odds makers had it set, sportsbetting.com anyway, had it set at 60% likelihood that Drew would return as the starter for day 1 of 2021. But with this sudden shift, Zach, I see it as being probably 50-50, honestly, that he – maybe a little more, 55, just a little favoritism toward Drew being the guy. Yeah. And that was something that was backed up by Mike Kliss, who is the most plugged in insider, obviously, at Dove Valley, when he reported the same day that, he's still the leader in the clubhouse, Drew Lock, to be the day 1 starter. Now, this little preamble I'm going on here is all designed to then say, depends on the GM. Now, if the GM comes in and doesn't like Lock or whatever, or has an opportunity like this, a Lance or a Fields falls into his lap, that could change the entire dynamic, and Drew could be sent packing, could be traded, could be just told, hey, look, man, at the very least you're gonna battle, or you might end up, just being the backup. We'll see. But I think a Lance might fall to 9. I think it's pretty safe bet to assume Trey Lance will drop to 9, but Justin Fields, no way, and Sam Hill. And I think if you were to flip that, you could probably get, depending on how desperate the team was, you could probably get at least you could get maybe, depending on how desperate the team was, 2 firsts at the very most, but probably 1 and a second and a third, something like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you that it's about 55-45 right now. That Lock comes back as the quarterback in 21. I wrote about it today that Fangio said it's not going to be a challenge if the new general manager comes in and has a different opinion, because he justified it as sometimes a new set of eyes can lead to something it can be a positive as well. But it all depends on who that general manager could be. If it's someone like Adam Peters, who's familiar with young quarterbacks in San Francisco, he might want to continue Drew Lock's development. If it's someone like Champ Kelly, who's acquired quarterbacks in Chicago, like Cutler and like Nick Foles, he might want to go to the draft markets or the free agent markets. It depends on who's calling the shots in Denver, if it's not just Elway Chad in disguise this April.
No kid. Man with no name jumping in on Super Chat. Appreciate that, my friend. It does mean a lot. It's going to be a little bit harder for us to keep an eye out for every single comment today without John here, with John being on vacation. But any specific topics or questions you have, we'll keep an eye out for that in the chat. But thank you, my friend. Make sure you connect with us on Twitter. Rich Stimson jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you. He says, hey, gents, hope you two are doing well. We are. We're doing excellent. We're having a great time. Appreciate you. And then we also got Levi jumping in early too. Really appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you. He's back in the saddle. He is officially back in the saddle after being abroad with a really cool job. If you want to know what Levi's job is, you'll have to reach out to him on social media and see what's up. But love you, Levi. Appreciate it. He says, too much hate today. Let's spread some love. Amen to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Levi. And it's true. And Chad, I'm just very grateful right now. We get to talk Broncos football. We get to talk about football in general. And Levi, you're kind of hitting on the mindset I'm in right now. So we appreciate it.
We got Mr. Boggins. Good to see you, bro. Jumping in on a super chat. He says, money on Champ Bailey or Brian Stark for GM. Well, but between those two, it would be Champ Kelly. I really don't think Brian Stark is anywhere close to being a leader in the clubhouse. I think that's a move, to be frank, designed to show the other guys in the front office and in personnel basically that we are going to consider other people. We're going to consider internal options so that, you keep morale up, you keep up the, optics that we do want to promote from within whenever possible. But I mean, that's not who I would say. Leader in the clubhouse right now, I think, is probably Champ Kelly. I think that's probably who they're going to end up meeting with first, although I'm not positive on that. And then I would say it's probably going to be Fontenot, and then no interview scheduled yet on Adam Peters. And you know what that tells me, Zach? Unless I missed something, that tells me that the Broncos have probably asked, and the Niners have yet to give them the answer they want.
I was thinking the same thing. If they were really that interested, and it seemed like the media was kind of just connecting dots to Adam Peters, and it really was no legitimate interest there. He could have been denied. He could have bypassed the interview. The Broncos could have said, forget it, we're going to move on. Right now, gun to my head, Champ Kelly is the next GM of the Broncos. He's not my first choice, but all the indications are pointing to that.
Darab wants to know, or Darab on YouTube, by the way, were the Von Miller texts fake? We have no way of knowing. We have no way of knowing, which is why, as a publication, milehighhuddle.com has steered clear of that. We're not in the TMZ business.
Right.
If more definitive information comes to light on that, of course we'll cover it, but it's not a topic that we're even going to consider getting into because such a thing could be so easily faked. I mean, right now I could change my screen name to say Von Miller and shoot Zach a text. And, it would look like it's coming from Von Miller and I could say whatever I want, right? You just don't know who's who when you're getting screenshots of someone's name. So we're just not going down that rabbit hole.
And those screenshots had his Hotmail email address. It wasn't even his phone number. Listen, there's two sides to every story and there's the truth. And I'll say the same thing I said on Twitter. Von Miller's personal business isn't any of my business. It's a personal matter with him, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Zeus, from the top rope, you look up through the clouds to the thin air of Mile High, you see MHH Mount Rushmore, the first face etched. Boom, this guy right here. Stu McPeak, love you, bro. Really appreciate that generosity and really helping us to kick off 2021, showing the love. And, man, you know how much you mean to us, my friend, and this entire community. So thank you so much, Stu. Love you, buddy.
I'm serious. When we print that denomination, Chad, when we have the Mile High Huddle currency, we're putting Stu's face right on there, number one. Thank you so much, Stu. We love you so much.
Love you, buddy. And we also have Albert jumping in, who is one of our Facebook supporters. So, Albert, I know it might be a little inconvenient for some things you may have planned that day on Sunday, but remember that live stream, Kelberman's Corner, coming to you Sunday at noon as a supporter. So be there, be square. He says, who would you prefer as a GM? I thought it was funny, Zach. You and I had not even talked at all day long. And I, in fact, had pretty much stayed off of Twitter because of everything that was going on. And I published a story about the Denver Broncos setting up an interview with Fontenot, the Saints guy. And as soon as I published that, I quote tweeted the article from MHH and said, he's probably my favorite guy right now, followed by Adam Peters, then Champ Kelly. We basically said the same thing on Twitter about the same time and totally not even seeing what each other was tweeting. So that's my order, but drop some knowledge on Albert on who you like, why you like him, etc.
Well, I mentioned Fontenot. Is that how you pronounce his name? Is it Fontenot?
I don't know if it's Fontenot or Fontenot. I mean, I guess I can research it.
Go you're Cajun on the last name. I'm going to just say Fontenot, and I love what he's done in New Orleans. Pound for pound, if you look at their roster the last 3, 4, 5 years, they have the most talented, deepest roster on offense and defense in the entire NFL, and he's been a huge part of that. He's declined various interview requests over the years. He's accepted one with the Broncos, which I'm surprised about. He would leave that perch in New Orleans to come to Denver possibly, but he's far and away number one. I really like him a lot. And I mentioned on Monday night's podcast, him being a possibility. So he's 1A. I think I have Adam Peters 1B. I have George Payton. It's not Patton. I looked that up. It's George Payton from the Vikings. He's number 3. And then I have Champ Kelly number 4. But far and away, Fontenot number 1.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
While I was doing my research on on Terry Fontenot. I'll just roll with how you're saying it. I came across his actual bio and resume that's up on Saints.com and was just blown away. I mean, I've heard his name many times, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to our community and our audience and pretend like I know the name of every personnel guy on the 32 team. I do know a lot of them. I know who a lot of them are, and I talk to people and I hear buzz and I hear things, but I don't know everything there is to know about these guys in the same way, Zach, that we might know about defensive coordinators and, head coaches and offensive coordinators and all that. But here's what jumped out to me. I mean, I can read through some of this stuff, but here's something that is really interesting. In 2012, Fontenot was selected by the Saints to attend the Stanford Business School's Executive Education NFL Stanford Program for Managers. Now, that's a mouthful, but what it is, it's an education program at Stanford's Business School, known across the league as an important training ground for promising executives. And let me tell you guys something. It ain't cheap, okay? It costs a lot of money. And the Saints tapped him, sent him. And then you look at some of his duties as he's a VP. In fact, what's his official title again? VP, Assistant General Manager, Pro Personnel. One of the things that he was responsible for, and this is also something that Champ Kelly has done for the Bears, respectively, is doing the advanced scouting. Now, what does that mean? That means when if you were the GM for the Broncos, well, I'll just keep it with the Saints. For the Saints, they get to the regular season. They have 16 opponents, right? Each week and leading up, it probably starts before game week, but it's his job to scout that opponent and provide specific, in-depth scouting reports that the coaches can then take as far as tendencies, X's and O's, different things like that. And it's just not an easy job, and it can only be done, Zach, by an expert. So this is a guy to keep an eye on right now. The Broncos are going to talk with him, and he's our favorite guy at this point.
And Chad, you mentioned Stanford. Where did Elway go to college? Yep. Stanford. And who is the head coach there? And David Shaw. I gave away his name just now. That's a candidate that many Broncos fans have always suggested when there was a coaching search going on. Having Fontenot would give almost a pipeline to maybe David Shaw. Regardless, though, he is far and away, at least for my front runner, or at least my preference. I love what he's done. Someone mentioned in the comments his draft in 2017, the players that he got: Alvin Kamara, Trey Hendrickson, Marshawn Lattimore. Those are three literal all-pro studs in one draft class. The Saints roster from top to bottom is the deepest in the NFL. He would transform the Broncos in 1 year. He's my hire.
We will get to some of the other candidates as we march through tonight's show. We're just getting started. We got Mike Evans, bona fide superstar. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great start to your new year. Today notwithstanding, of course, what's going on in our country. But Mike, he says, do you think we will place a second-round tender on Tim Patrick and retain him next season? Appreciate you. I don't know yet, man. If it would have been Elway in sticking around as the main shot caller, I would have told you that it's probably going to be a second round, just because Zach, he basically performed at a near number one wide receiver level, and that's valuable. There are a lot of teams out there now that see Tim Patrick for who and what he is. He has value. Now, does that mean a team's going to swoop in like the Dolphins did on C.J. Anderson and sign him to an offer sheet and all that stuff? Not necessarily, but what I could see happening, even when Elway was the GM, and even more so now, depending on which GM gets hired, Zach, is a tender and trade, where he gets tendered, whatever level, probably a second round, to be frank. And then the Broncos turn around because they know they're getting Cortland back. They got Judy back next year 2, Hamler year 2. Tyreek Cleveland balled out of control in the season finale. They've got a nice little wide receiver depth chart there. And if you can turn around and trade him, that might be a win-win for the franchise and for Patrick.
It's a nice bonus opportunity, but even if you can't bring him back at what would the second round tender cost? $3-4 million for 2021?
Something.
And selfishly, I'd love to see Tim Patrick on like the Chiefs or the Packers. I'd love to see what he can do on an explosive offense. He would start for half the teams in the NFL. But if I'm the Broncos, I'm keeping him around. I'm rewarding him. I'm not really trading him. I'll pay him the tender amount, but I'm keeping him around because what if Sutton comes back slowly or has a setback from his injury? What if Jerry Jeudy goes down? And if one of those injuries occurs or those setbacks occur, you're left with nothing in the wide receiver core. I'm not counting on KJ Hamler. I'm not counting on Cleveland. Tim Patrick has balled out. He's the Shelby Harris of the offense. He does all the dirty work with really none of the the praise for it. I prefer to keep him around, Chad, but I would tender him for sure at the second round level.
Stephen Baumgartner, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you being here with us tonight. And for the super chat, he says, hey guys, going to be an exciting year for the Broncos. That it is, my friend. By the way, here's your second round salary for an RFA. All right.
Peanuts for someone like that.
But is it peanuts when you're paying a first round salary, you're paying a second round rookie salary, and Cortland Sutton, who's earned some significant pay escalators, even though he missed this last season due to the fact that he made a Pro Bowl, he's got a raise coming to him in his contract year in 2021.
I would wager, though, Jerry Jeudy's salary and KJ Hamler's salary for next season, it's at least KJ Hamler's, it's probably the same as Tim Patrick. So let's say you have 3 receivers under contract for $15 million in salary cap space. They're all starters. I think you can devote that if you want to be a passing offense with the young quarterback.
Fat Cat's in the house. Good to see you, my friend. I really appreciate you. This is a cat that has come on strong of late, and it's just been great having you in these chats, and we sure appreciate the support, my friend. If you're on Twitter, reach out and connect with us so we can shout you out after each and every show. He says, I want a good 2021, but what GM is coming in here knowing he's handcuffed on the coaching staff and no guarantee for 2022? Keep up the good pod, fellas. Appreciate that, my friend. But, Zach, here's the misnomer. It's becoming increasingly more popular or commonplace in the NFL for GMs to sign fully guaranteed deals upwards. This is something Mike Florio wrote about. All right. I'm not a huge fan of Mike Florio. Zach, I think both of us, we kind of share a brain on that.
Yeah.
But he's very plugged in himself around the NFL. And had an article that talked about how the GM salaries now and the way the contracts are working is basically the ones who are in high demand, they can swing this. So if it's Champ Kelly, who's going to be in high demand, there's 6 open GM jobs right now, okay? They demand, before they even blink at accepting the interview, or not the job, I should say, not the interview, but 5-6 years, fully guaranteed, because that's a job security, all right? That means if there is, and especially for a team like the Broncos, they're going to have to compete in that way to get the right GM. They're going to have to assure them that, yes, we're confident that ownership's going to be resolved soon, and that whoever it ends up going to, you're going to be our guy. You're the vision. You're the voice. And to show you how much we mean that, we'll guarantee your contract for 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it might be. So I wouldn't. I agree. We talked about this on Monday, Zach, that it's not the most ideal situation for any GM, but something that coming in here, because you got Elway looking over your shoulder, the shadow of Elway. You've got a quarterback that's going to be foisted upon you. You got a coaching staff that's going to be foisted upon you in many ways. But the way that Joe Ellis talked about it on Tuesday kind of made me go, yeah, you know what? He's right. There's only 32 jobs in the world. There's only 32 GM jobs, and that really crystallizes things for these candidates pretty dang quick.
Yeah, I think we're thinking along the same lines here. I actually look at 2022 as a selling point for the new GM because of those reasons that you just listed, because Elway's out of the picture then more than likely, or at least in a diminished capacity, because Joe Ellis is out of the picture, because by then ownership should be resolved, because by then you should have a quarterback. And when you hire a GM, like you said, you're given multi-year deals that are very, very lucrative. And the first season especially is always it's always the honeymoon season, Chad. For a coach or a GM, you don't get fired after the first season, even if you go 0-16. So this guy, whoever it may be, if it's Champ Kelly, he would sign on knowing that whatever he does in 21, it would be a write-off. And then really his deal would start in 22 going forward. But I actually look at it as a selling point because the Broncos will get out from under this. They're not going to be in purgatory forever. They're not going to be irrelevant forever. And I think with the right guy in place, they can turn around fairly quickly.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Agreed. Christos, question on YouTube. Zach, chat, do you think new ownership is coming soon? With Elway moving up and Ellis leaving, seems like big things are brewing. Yes, absolutely. And by the way, real quick, Anthony, appreciate those stars on Facebook, my dog. We would suggest and say, hey, come become an official supporter so you can be in on that. These weekly streams. That we'll see how it goes. I mean, we plan on providing that content to our Facebook supporters. The more people that seem to be interested in that, the more content we're going to start feeding there on top of what we do every day on YouTube. That ain't going to change, but we want to start giving some love to our Facebook community. But getting back to what he's talking about here, Zach, as far as new ownership, Elway moving up Ellis leaving and big things brewing. Look, dude, the ownership's coming probably sometime. The latest I would say, Zach, is that it's going to be early 22. We'll probably have a resolution, but it could be this year. It could be in the summer. Like if the judge throws this thing out, or it has a really quick resolution in July, Zach, this thing could be resolved within a 90-day window from there.
My personal feeling is that we're gonna know who's gonna be the future owner. There's gonna be a candidate, whether it's Beth Bolin Wallace, whether it's Brittany Bolin, or whether it's an outside candidate. But we're gonna know. I mean, they're gonna be the owner elect for the Broncos franchise, and then in 22 it'll become official. I think I agree with you. We'll have some clarity sometime this year.
We got Matthew wants to know on YouTube. Do you guys have an Instagram we can support as well if we're not on Facebook or Twitter? Yes, we do. Yep. Just Google Mile High Huddle. I think it's at @mile_high_huddle. Pretty easy leap there. So that's another way to do it, my friend.
But get a Twitter account for sure. We always encourage that.
Most def. Willie G in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. He says, the vibe I'm getting from the organization so far is that Locke is the guy day one at minimum. Those are the talking points. Zach, you had an interesting story today on something that Vic Fangio said with regard to Drew's prospects. Drop some knowledge on everyone on that topic.
Well, he was asked yesterday, would it be a challenge if the new GM comes in and has a different opinion on Locke as a quarterback? And he said it's not a challenge. He could see it that way, but he could see it as an affirmation of Locke as the guy in Denver. But it's more so what Fangio said before that. It's what he said in his day after press conference chat after the Broncos season ended. He was asked if Locke will return as the starter next season. He said he can. He left everything so open-ended. He can be. He has to improve. He can be. He can be. There was nothing certain at all. It was completely tenuous. So I don't get the vibe that it's a guarantee. I think it's far from that. I think you had it best, Chad, when you said 55-45. He has a slight advantage right now, but by no means is anything guaranteed, especially with no GM in place.
But what he does have going for him, I'll tell you this, is, whichever GM takes over, obviously is going to be no fool. All right. And they realize that the Broncos have put in a lot of development on Locke, and they're keeping, in large part, I wrote about this today. Why is continuity such a focus for the front office? You think it's because the defense they don't want the defense to have to learn a new playbook? No. The continuity starting from Fangio and all the way to Shermer is to benefit Locke and this young offense, but mostly Locke. So that is the unspoken, it's a covert signal. Doesn't even need to be, broadcast by the front office. Then you have, for this new GM, and then you have Elway, who said, we're still what's the exact verbiage? We're still excited. We still
believe in Drew. Is that what he said? Something along those lines?
Something to that effect.
We're still excited about him? Or?
Yeah. So it's still there. Vic Fangio, though, he's on some uneven ground right now, so he's choosing his words very carefully. We got BNS. Good to see you, my friend. He says, I still say the larger issue is Fangio's complete failure managing the clock, the sideline, timeouts, locker room, and holding players accountable. I want to go to Mexico too. Yeah, I hear you, my friend. But those are all definite drawbacks and issues. And the Broncos feel like he's worked his way through that trial and error learning curve. We're not so sure.
No, he lost them that game against the Raiders, and it's always been a problem with him. And there's no accountability either with the on-field personnel or his coaching staff. For Tom McMahon, real quick, for Tom McMahon to still be employed by the Broncos, I don't care about the GM. There's no evaluation that has to take place for McMahon's job. Scangarello was made a scapegoat after going 4-1 in his first year. McMahon's had 3 seasons now, and every year has been worse than the last, and he still has a job. What message does that send to the players in the locker room? Not a good one.
I agree. Andrew on YouTube says, I thought Adam Peters was the front runner. I'm going to grab that. We're going to talk about that. We've touched on it already, but a lot of times Zach is, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat. As we get started on a live stream, people are thumbing through Facebook or YouTube and they get the notification. They can't always jump in right at the beginning. Sometimes they miss what is said early on. So we'll touch on this here in just a moment, Andrew, as we grab this super from Larry. Appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you, by the way. He says, I saw that San Francisco might be moving on.
Oh, no.
Please tell me there's no chance we even consider him. Could Locke be trade bait for a team like New England or SF? Depending on the outlook of the GM that comes in here, yes, he could be trade bait to an outside team. And San Francisco, we've talked about it a few times during the actual season, Zach, that imagine what Kyle Shanahan could do with a quarterback like Drew Lock in terms of fit, in terms of tools and all that. But in no way, shape, or form could I ever see Jimmy G landing here. This is a franchise that understands the value of the mobile quarterback. And I think that Nick Kendall said this last night quite succinctly, quite well on building the Broncos. Miss me on the statuesque pocket guys. They're a dying breed. And the farther you get into, NFL history, the less they're going to be a prevalent species.
Well, if Jimmy G couldn't cut it with Kyle Shanahan, can you imagine him with Pat Shurmur? What would he accomplish? And if you trade for him, there's no way it's going to happen, you're taking on that massive overpaid contract on top of giving up a pick for him. Even if Peters comes here, Adam Peters oversaw the development of two young quarterbacks in CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins after they acquired Jimmy G. So no way in hell is Jimmy G coming here. I don't think Locke is getting flipped. Though, Locke in a Kyle Shanahan system, I would love to see that. I really would, selfishly.
The whole thing about Adam Peters is it's easy to go to him as an easy connection candidate for the Broncos because he was groomed by John Elway and Matt Russell in that front office. And then the Niners came calling when Kyle Shanahan was hired, and then he hired John Lynch, and they wanted to bring in Adam Peters and offer him a promotion and which comes with a pay raise, right? And Elway, being very unselfish, allowed him to take that job, though he didn't have to. And so I think at this stage, though, what we know about Shanahan is that, do you remember, for those of you who can cast your minds back to early 2019, shortly after the Vic Fangio hire, Kyle Shanahan made it extremely difficult on Elway and Fangio to get that interview with Rich Scangarello, who was not his right-hand scouting guy, his frickin' quarterbacks coach. Kyle Shanahan can coach these quarterbacks, any quarterback in his scheme, with his eyes closed. He can do it in his sleep. But that was his quarterbacks coach. In other words, I don't want to make it sound like too trivialized in terms of, replaceability or whatever, but that was his quarterbacks coach. We're not talking about coordinator. We're not talking about a front office guy. Now imagine how reticent he's going to be to allow an outside team come in and swoop up his guy. So I think the reason we haven't heard anything, Zach, is because the Broncos have asked and they haven't gotten the answer they want yet.
I do think maybe Shanahan was onto something, though. I think he saw a rising star in Scangarello, and he showed that in Denver. And Scangarello, for those who don't know, he was a senior consultant in Philadelphia this year, and he oversaw the development of Jalen Hurts, who was great the second half of the season, or when he started the games this year. So Kyle Shanahan saw that. Another scenario there with Peters is the Broncos, it was always a media-made connection to Adam Peters. It was never anything substantial. So maybe Champ Kelly is the guy. Maybe they have another guy in mind, but it doesn't seem like Peters is on the radar.
We'll see. I still think that a rabbit could come out of that hat at any moment in terms of news that Peters is going to interview for the job, because it makes a lot of sense. Both he and Kelly, in a lot of the same ways, make sense for Elway because they both have experience working not just for the Broncos, but under Elway. They understand, just kind of the expectations. And even though whoever that GM is going to be given full reign to make all roster decisions, they at least understand the working environment, and, people gravitates to like. Gilster 37, good to see you, my friend. Is Daniel Jeremiah even up for dictation? It's a name that I've heard thrown around a few times, but I don't think he's really on the Broncos' radar. The Broncos aren't going to go to a media guy. Just like Louis Riddick, as great as he is, right. I don't think the Broncos are going to a media guy. Daniel Jeremiah, they both have scouting experience, but I think they go with someone that's been in the league, been behind the closed doors, on the cutting edge of all things scouting, all things technology, all things analytics, and that's what the direction they'll go.
Nailed it. Yeah, they're not going to gamble on the next Mike Mayock. They want a guy who has, skin in the game. Fully agree with that.
Darren, appreciate that, my friend. He says, I love you guys. I live in KC. Been a Broncos fan since Mike Harden. Do you think Von Miller will be back? Similar to Drew, but with a little bit better odds. It's contingent on the next GM. There's been no definitive answer on that from Elway or Fangio or, anyone who's talked about it since the season ended. But Zach, I would say it's probably like an 85% chance Vaughn comes back for 2021. Now, whether that's on the final year of his deal and then he's a free agent, or if they find a way to get him extended this offseason, lower his 2021 cap hit, get him a couple extra years, allow him at least the possibility of retiring a Bronco. I do think he ends up back here in Denver, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's the second order of business for the new GM is after figuring out the quarterback is figuring out the Von Miller situation. And I'm with you. I think I put the odds a little lower, maybe like 75%, but the majority consensus is that he's going to return. And I don't think the text messages, Chad, are going to factor into his future with Denver. It's what can he bring to the table? At what cost do we want to keep him around for what he can bring to the table? So I do think he returns.
And again, we still don't know the veracity of those text messages. Sure. If it's even Vaughn for sure. We don't know. Nowadays, guys, deep fakes are a thing. Do you guys know what deep fakes are? Deep fakes are actual digital, someone could make a rendering of my face digitally, have me saying, the monologue from Glengarry Glen Ross or something, and you think it's me, but it's not. All right. There are so many things on the digital landscape you can do to fake things that until there's any kind of thing, anything more definitive, I can't go for that.
That's a good reference, Chad. Great movie.
Great movie. Yes, indeed. Put that coffee down. J-Bone, good to see you, my friend. Really generous, super wow. Thank you, my brother. Really means a lot to us.
Thank you, Justin.
Just unbelievable. Thank you, man. Guy that's been with us a long time. He's not just a bona fide superstar. I think J-Bone's up there. I think he's up there on
with the
Mount
coolest
Rushmore.
nickname, Chad. J-Bones.
J-Bone.
Beat that.
Indeed. He says, I take Lance at 9, pick 9 in the draft. His ceiling is in the stratosphere. Locke would honestly benefit from the competition. In a few years, we could have 2 very good quarterbacks, and the hard decision, which one to tag and trade. Thanks for the distraction. Needed one today. Yeah, the same for us, man. We appreciate you guys being with us because we needed it too. But what's your thought to the idea of taking Lance at 9 and letting him come in and push Locke?
I have kind of floated that the Locke situation, and this was before week 17, but I foresaw maybe like a Carson Wentz hurt situation where he goes in Locke as the guy he's to start out the first, whatever half of the season. And when or if he stumbles, then you have the guy who can come in and fill his place. I don't know if that's going to be Lance or Zach Wilson or Mac Jones or Jeff Driscoll or anyone. That is from the new GM. But keep in mind, if it's Fontenot, they had Drew Brees and they drafted Taysom Hill. So, and a guy like Champ Kelly, they had Trubisky, they acquired Nick Foles. So with both candidates there, you might have the situation where Locke's looking over his shoulder at a really high-profile backup.
Let me see what else we've got here. Man, this has just been a phenomenal chat so far today. We got some good topics, some passionate comments and questions. Leroy, he wants Theo. I almost said Theo. Right? Lewis Riddick is the pick for him, hands down. I don't know, man. I'm kind of torn on that topic. I want someone who's in the trenches today, but I understand why people really like him because he's brilliant, knows football, knows personnel. But I want someone that's had his sleeves rolled up in the league for the last few years.
And that's what the Broncos need as well. I think that's what the Broncos are looking for. Lewis Riddick makes sense for a franchise that's kind of like the Panthers in a sense where they're just completely entering a full rebuild. I don't think the Broncos there, Chad, are entering a full rebuild. I think they're not one piece away, but not also 20 pieces away. So I wouldn't gamble on someone as good as he is like Lewis Riddick.
We got one here from John Houston who wants to know, thank you for the super, my friend, who are some potential owners? What's that dude's name? The billionaire in Denver, Smith, Robert Smith?
Robert Smith, yeah.
Robert Smith. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse if the team were to get sold. But, Joe Ellis is really going to hold on for dear life to try and execute Pat's wish, the late Pat Bowlen, that the team stay with one of his eligible and qualified heirs. And, obviously we know this, that Joe Ellis wants it to go to Brittany. Beth Bolin, she's just trying to spoil, I think, the whole thing because the Broncos, the Pat Bolin Trust is against her as being, and it's actually quite sad, Zach, because she is qualified. She is as qualified, if not more, than Brittany in terms of what it apparently stipulates in the trust qualifies for qualified. But, it's one of those things that, if I can't have it, no one's going to have it type thing. But I don't know. We'll see. That's still a consideration and a can that's getting kicked down the road, probably at least 9 months.
And people mention, Jeff Bezos from Amazon. They mention, Peyton Manning. He doesn't have the money for that. I do, maybe it's blind optimism, but I do think the Broncos will stay within the Bolin family. And based on the way they positioned her the last year, I got to think Brittany is the favorite, Chad. She handled the pandemic response. She handled she's working back in the front office now, and everything, despite what Joe Ellis says and the way he frames her, I just think she's being kind of groomed to take over. Among the in-house candidates, I definitely think she's the front runner.
All right, let's grab here another super from our friend Levi. Good to see you, brother, again. Like I said, he says, I feel like I'm in the minority, but I believe the new GM will have the final say in staff and players. I don't think there will be any handcuffs or preconceived notions. Honestly, Elway's wings have been clipped. This job this is my read. All right. I'm not trying to tell you guys insider information per se here. Okay. My read on this is that Elway was fired. Okay. If it was any other person, fired. The reason he's being elevated and the reason it's being postured that way, because look, if it'd be one thing if Elway's elevating or relinquishing GM duties to go do this other thing up higher in the executive hierarchy, and then Matt Russell gets promoted to be the GM. But that ain't what happened. Elway goes up. Matt Russell has basically said, we got to let you go. And Matt's like, well, I'm just going to retire. And Joe Ellis didn't realize this, Zach, I don't think, on Tuesday. But, Freudian slips are a thing. And he talked about how that Matt is retired, yes, but that it ain't going to be for long and that he's going to be trying to convince him to get back in the league and there'll always be a place for him in the league. What does that tell you? That tells you that Matt did this because he was basically told to. All right. He was told to, you're gone. So for PR purposes, why don't you retire for a while? This is just my read. This is just an opinion. Okay. Why don't you retire for a while? Because it's either that or have fired on the NFL resume.
You know what? A lot of Broncos fans think that this next GM is going to be a puppet through which Elway still runs the team, and he's almost like the lightning rod to take the spotlight off and the criticism off John Elway. I think the opposite. I think this new GM will have most, if not full, autonomy, and John Elway has got to linger in the background, collect a paycheck for another year. That's a big thing. He's making millions of dollars, and really let the new guy, the new blood, run the team the way he wants. As an example, most people don't know this, but the Cowboys, they're not run by Jerry Jones. He doesn't make he's the figurehead of the team, but who runs the team is his son, Stephen Jones. And it's the same situation. Elway would be Jerry Jones in the situation, and the new GM would be Stephen Jones. He was going to be there as a figurehead, Chad, like Ed Donatel as the coordinator. He doesn't call the plays, but he has the title. It's Fangio doing the dirty work, and that's going to be the new GM.
Well, and even Ellis said Elway's not going to meddle. The closest that Elway got to during his presser was, I just want to be helpful where I can for the big decisions. I want to be there. The GM can come to me with my experience as a player and obviously in the front office for the last 10 years. I can be a resource. But it's going to be the GM, guys. This is a full turning over of the leaf. And that's why, on the surface, from the outside looking in, it can look like they're just looking to bring in another yes man, Vance Joseph, but instead of head coach, it's GM. That's not what this is. No. This is preserving John Elway's legacy by letting him step back into the limelight, participate in the hiring of the next GM, and then fade off into the distance because he's served his purpose. And let's face it, he served the Broncos pretty damn well over his combined 26 years within the organization. Joe, appreciate the stars, my friend. Appreciate that a lot. Dar the Doggy, interesting name. Thank you for the super. Thoughts on Juwan James, and are we keeping Vaughn? Well, we addressed the Vaughn thing, but Zach, Juwan James, we haven't got the story up yet at milehighhuddle.com. We'll get it up here soon in the near future with some analysis on our part here. But Garrett Bowles laid it out on Front Street. Yeah. Talk about Freudian slips, all right? That wasn't even Freudian. That was just being as transparent as possible, saying that he's going to have Juwan James is going to have to earn back the trust of his teammates.
He said he has a lot of work to do. We talked about this on Monday's pod, and I love Bowles for saying this. He said and it's true, Juwan James, after he didn't come back from the injury in 2019, and I think that ruffled more feathers in the locker room than 2020 opting out because of the pandemic. And those two things working consecutively, just a $51 million contract, and his teammates are out there busting their asses and bleeding and sweating and crying, going through losing seasons. Juwan James is sitting on the couch collecting money. I love what Bowles said. And Fangio said the opposite, though. He said today that he still talks to Juwan James, and he's kind of still high on him. So we'll have to see what happens if we can rely on him, which is looking increasingly unlikely.
But you know what? They have some serious dead cap if they were to move on from James. So barring a trade, he's your right tackle 2021 and 2022. There's a little bit better relief if you moved on from him in 2022, but he's locked in. Anthony, thank you for the stars, my friend. What is that, a red panda? Isn't that what they call that? Talk about a Mount Rushmore superstar.
Oh, there he is.
Right here. Mark Langley out in Georgia, a Southern Bronco. Love you, buddy, and that just blows us away. Thank you so much. I mean, Mark's been frontline superstar since we started doing the streams. You know, for those of you who are just, and it surprises me, I shouldn't say surprised, it's a reminder constantly, Zach, that this show is ever growing because, you know, people started at me on Twitter today and yesterday about, I'm so excited to go through an off season with the Huddle Up podcast because they weren't with us last year. But right. Zach and I, you know, we've been doing this several years now. And so Mark, you know, as far as the live streams, we just started doing that, taking our podcast from a recorded thing that we would just upload to doing it live on YouTube at the beginning of the 2019 football season. And Mark's been there along the way through it all and been a big part of our success and our ability to focus our time and energy into this content because of support like this. So Mark, mile high salute, bro. Love you.
I'll give you three more because Chad, he dropped a quartet of those donations. So in total, he dropped $4.99s.
Mark,
it's incredible,
dude.
No words.
That's a new record. If he did, let's see. Are you kidding me?
4.
1, 2, 3. Mark, dude. 4. Hold up.
So I'm just keep saluting you. Then you definitely deserve it, Mark. Thank you so much,
dude. Mark, I hope that was. I hope that wasn't like a button got stuck on YouTube, dog. You know?
His cat walked on the keyboard.
Mark, that just blows us away, dude. Seriously.
Thank you.
I mean, speechless. It just stuns me, dude.
They said 5, Chad. Did we miss one? They're saying 5 in the chat.
1, 2, 3.
Forgive me, Mark, if I was
4.
wrong. I counted 4.
5.
Wow. Is that a record?
The record was
Brian
from BG, and Mark just broke it. Goodness gracious, Mark!
Wow,
I'm just stunned. I mean, 1, 2, they all look the same on the screen. 3, 4, 5. Goodness gracious! I mean, just thank you. That's all we can say, dude. Is thank you so much, and you know we love you.
Connect with let's send you something out, Mark, that we haven't sent you yet. You know, connect with us. Let's do something. You're unbelievable. Nothing we can offer can make up for what you just did, but just know that we are entirely grateful for you, and we have been from day one. Thank you so much,
dude. Text me, and you know we'll send you some swag.
Yeah,
man, just love you, appreciate you, bro. Steve, thank you for the stars, my dog. Good to see you, by the way, in the chat. As always. And Steve is one of the guys that was like stoked to be in the off season, go through an off season covering Broncos with Huddle Up. So buckle in, buckle up. It's going to be a freaking blast, man. I'm still
baby.
I'm still kind of just flabbergasted here on Mark. I'm just blown away. Muhammad, MHH male model, rocking the. Let's see, how's he do it? No, left hand. Right, I need to go put the hoodie on. Where is it? Oh,
I got to screenshot this. Hang on.
Muhammad, appreciate you, my friend. He says, "What's up, rock stars? I'm late, but I'm here now. # stay great." Appreciate that, dog.
Thank you.
Love you, love you. There's Mark again at 7:02. Wow. Goodness gracious, just blowing our socks off.
Nothing we could say can match your gratitude.
I've seen a lot of this still from Ian on Facebook. It's not the first one to ask in tonight's chat. Won't be the last. Do you guys think the Broncos will offer Peyton the GM job? It's not going to happen. The last thing Elway said on the topic was Monday night after his presser. He was asked it by Mike Kliss in a one-on-one exclusive interview, and Elway said, look, since the announcement that I'm stepping up, right, or whatever, relinquishing GM duties, a lot of people have called. Peyton hasn't been one of them. So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know.
We've been saying this for years now. He doesn't want a day-to-day grind, 17 hours to work in the front office to be a GM. He wants a piece of ownership. If anything, we don't know Peyton's plans. He's been very close-guarded with what he wants to do in the NFL. If any, remember, Chad, he was going to the Senate run, the rumor a few years ago, he was going to run for Senate, I think, or politics. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. Why would he come back to work, 80 hours a week in the Broncos front office?
I mean, he is that kind of a grinder. Like, it's like people like my father, for example, you think, oh, yeah, I'd like to retire on a beach someday and just chill and look at the waves crash against the sand. But honestly, that gets old pretty quick, believe it or not. And especially if you're a go-getter and you're an achiever or anything, you want to work, you want to have something to strive for, you want to grind. And Peyton's exactly that. And even that Peyton's Places that he's done on ESPN Plus, I mean, that is just as well done of a piece of sports media that you'll find out there. Very meticulous, very just phenomenal. And that's just Peyton. But I agree with you, Zach, that in order for him to convince his wife probably to allow him to get back to doing something that has that kind of a time commitment, it's got to be the perfect stars aligned, everything Peyton wants. And this just might not be the situation, the time, or the place for him quite yet.
And what would he want to do it for? He wouldn't want to, do a rebuild more than likely. He'd want to win a title or titles. So I think he'd want to step into a situation that's more of a win now scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Judah, good to see you, my friend. A name that we're not too familiar with on Super Chat. So
welcome.
Thank you, my friend, and connect with us on Twitter so that we can get to know you. He says, I think Elway wants a yes man with an idea he has without being blamed. We need a GM that has no connection to Elway for brand new ideas. I get that. I don't see it that way. I really think that this GM it's his job. It's his show. I really do think that.
I do. I agree, though. I think I want someone that really the sole barometer, Chad, of hiring the guy shouldn't be because he has Broncos ties. So, part of the reason why I want Terry Fontenot is because he's completely fresh blood. And if you're going to do this the right way, you can't have someone has the Broncos or Elway's agenda, whatever that may be. That guy that you see right there, he should be the front runner. He is unbelievably talented. His resume, Chad, is beyond impressive.
Let me just read a few things, all right? Bear with me 1 second. Terry Fontenot this is the beginning of the 2020 season. He begins his 16th season with the New Orleans Saints and 6th as director of pro scouting. His responsibilities in managing the pro personnel department include recommending player acquisitions by evaluating players from all professional leagues, including the Saints roster, monitoring the waiver wire, and supervising the advanced scouting of upcoming opponents. I explained to you guys what advanced scouting means. Fontenot spent 7 seasons as a pro scout before his promotion, where his responsibilities included evaluating and rating current professional players and preparing the club for acquisitions through free agency or the waiver wire. He would also assist in the team's draft preparations and the weekly advanced scouting of upcoming opponents. He has held multiple positions in the scouting department, including as a pro scouting assistant, where he helped evaluate free agents, track player movement, studied film, and aided in the planning for the NFL draft, and as an assistant in player personnel. And then I explained to you what the whole Stanford Business School thing that the Saints sent him to. This guy is the complete package. And if you're looking for a candidate for what it's worth that is not necessarily sprouting in any way, shape, or form from the Elway tree, this guy, in my opinion, rises above all comers.
He's worked alongside one of the best head coaches in the NFL in Sean Payton and one of the best GMs in the NFL in Mickey Loomis. I mean, look at their Saints roster. What they do in the draft alone, they don't really dabble too much on the open market. They don't really sign overpriced players. They build from within, and that's exactly the ideology the Broncos have to have, Chad. And with his drafting acumen, he can restock the cupboard in one offseason. Far and away the number one candidate.
Carlos, good to see you, bro. Appreciate the super. He says, Carnalitos, keep Locko. Love y'all. So Carlos wants Locke to stick around. And, how are you feeling on that front, Zach? I know time heals all wounds. Time changes the way we see and view things. We're only a couple of days since the end of the season, but are you still viewing Drew as probably the best option for 2021?
I mean, I think he did a lot in that Week 17 game in the finale, Chad. I thought that was, if this was at his audition to be the guy or start the season as the guy, he passed with flying colors. That was one of the best, if not his best performance in a Broncos uniform. I'm still very high on him, but I'm looking at things realistically that his biggest supporter inside Dove Valley is now gone, or at least moving on to greener pastures, and John Elway. The next guy, whoever that may be, has zero loyalty to anyone on the roster, including Drew Lock. So I'm looking at it not from what I want, from what I think might happen in Denver. And the new guy might want to move on from him.
Mark, how's everybody doing? All like, so you guys seen anything interesting happen around here lately?
Nothing happened tonight. Thank you, Mark.
Hope you're doing well, brother, man. We love you. Manny wants to know, longtime listener, superstar in the community. Does Elway buy a piece of ownership into the Broncos? I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think that's in the cards. Elway's focus henceforth is, finish up 2021 and get to, he talked about he's worked hard his whole life. He's had a lot of success, right? I think it was also Mike Florio who guesstimated that Elway's salary as GM and president of football operations on this new contract approaches around $6 million a year. You take that with all the money he made as a player. You take that with all the money he made in business with his dealerships and his restaurants and all that. I mean, the dude has a nice little chunk of change stashed away, and he talked about wanting to enjoy the fruits of those labors. And Zach, that phrase that you kind of keyed on to, he's 61 and he's running out of runway. So now's the time.
I love that phrase. I'm going to try to work that into my day-to-day life, even though I'm like half his age. But he also mentioned, Chad, his 7th grandchild was born. And I really get the distinct feeling he's going to walk away after next year, completely just cut it off. He's been around the NFL for 40 years now without a break. He's taken a lot of heat. He's been under the microscope for half a decade now, or a decade as the Broncos GM, but especially the last half decade. I do think he's collecting a paycheck. And what the Broncos did for him real quick was allowing him to be on staff and being in that elevated position. It was the same thing as giving him a gold Rolex when you retire. It's a symbolic gesture for someone who put in so much work over the years. Letting him collect that $6 million, be the president and be the overseer, and then walk away, like you said, Chad, underneath the radar, walk into the sunset, and retire.
Chase, good to see you, bro. Another superstar in our community says, so if Locke fails this year, are you giving him another chance? This was Bull's 4th year. Does Locke get year 4 if he fails again? I doubt it. No, and he might not get year 3, for what it's worth.
Why are we comparing Bowles and Locke, though? Bowles had the best position coach in the NFL in Mike Munchak. Does Drew Lock have that in Pat Shermer and Mike Shula? It's not an apples-to-apples comparison.
Right. This is an interesting point here from I Am Supreme, who's it's tongue-in-cheek, MHH, sponsored by Mark. You guys got to remember, nobody pays us to get on and do this content for you on YouTube. So it's not like when for example, you go to milehighhuddle.com as just an example. We earn money cultivating this website. All right. This is how we make a living. We don't make money day one just hopping on YouTube and creating a video or a live stream. The reason we've been able to dedicate increasing over time more and more content, videos, live streams to YouTube is because of the community based, funding the content. And so this is actually said tongue in cheek, I Am Supreme 22, but it's actually the truth. Right. I mean, our superstars are responsible for our longevity, for sustaining us over this period that we started taking the podcast to YouTube. So we love each and every one of our superstars and our people on Facebook too, the official supporters and those who chip in. I mean, it really does allow us to. Otherwise, we'd just be chilling at milehighhuddle.com, cranking out stories all day instead of coming over here and talking because, that's you have to put a roof over your head.
Yeah, that's no fun either. I mean, we love the interaction. We love doing this every day. And, though, as we're going to have the dollar bill for Stu when we print our currency, I think it's only right if the $100 bill has Mark's beautiful face plastered all over it.
I agree. Mark, good to see you, my friend. And we have just crossed over the 1 hour mark, so we got to kind of rapid fire these remaining supers here. But Mark Anthony Ignacio jumping in. Appreciate that. He says, Mark with the C jumping in from the low rope. No, dude, it's always the top rope. New era for Broncos country and hopefully a bright one. Keep killing it, y'all. Hashtag Mark Langley, the gangsta. Agreed. And by the way, Mark Anthony, if you're on Twitter, dude, reach out and let us know so that we can connect with you, because after every podcast, I try and find you, but there's no Mark Anthony Ignacio. And I have to remind everybody that oftentimes your YouTube handle is different than your Twitter account. And I don't know who's who if it's different. We don't know that. So if it is different, and even if it's the same, always at us and let us know who you are so that we can connect those dots and be sure.
But thank you, Mark, with a C.
Love you, buddy.
Appreciate you.
All right, let me see what else we got here. We don't want to leave anyone out in the cold as far as our superstars. John Clay, good to see you, my friend. This is a guy that I know has listened to the show for a long time, and he's increasingly been active on Super Chat, and he reached out on Twitter to me the other day. So it's been good to connect with you, my friend. He says, thanks for all you guys do. Tonight of all nights, it's great to talk Broncos football.
Agreed.
Appreciate that, John.
Thank you.
Pete, love you, buddy. Thank you for the stars, my dog. Let me see here. Bear with me. We don't have John to keep the flow going tonight, so bear with me. Maybe we've gotten everybody. Maybe we're good to go. While I search, Zach, let's grab this one. Why don't you grab this one from Tigers Football, and then I'll pop back in.
All right, no problem. He says, or they say, we appreciate you. Love from Australia. I'm a new Broncos fan. Wow, Australia. And love all your guys' work. Thanks for keeping me updated. Do you think the new uniforms will be coming with the new owner/CEO? I don't know that that's atop the priority list. I would love, Chad, for the Broncos to go to the old school D logo, the dark navy helmet they have for throwbacks, and maybe keep their white uniforms. The Broncos, I think, have some of the cleanest, freshest uniforms in the entire NFL. I don't know that I would tweak it overall. I would maybe add this logo as more of a staple, but I like the Broncos color a lot.
Here's what it would be in a perfect world to me. The Color Rush helmet, which has the old D, but it's the darker blue of the modern uniforms.
Right.
With the tradition, with what you see as far as the jersey rotation and the pants, I think that would be. And I'm not meaning Color Rush jersey. I mean like your regular orange and blue away or home, and your white away. I think that would be dope. But there's also some juice, man, with the new, because the Broncos were, the almost team of the 20th century until Pat made that fateful decision, Pat Bowlen, to change the game, and that started in 97, or was it? Yeah, it was 97, the year they won Super Bowl 32, their first. So it was their fifth trip, to the Super Bowl. And it was the first time in this new uniform they won the Super Bowl. And so all of their success in terms of the world championships have been since the uniform change. Pro teams, man, they are superstitious. Why do you think the freaking Steelers have not ever really changed anything? Why do you think the Packers? The Giants have kind of tweaked some things on their helmet, but there are reasons for that, and it's not always bottom line about marketing and things like that.
Even Kansas City, they've had the same logo and the same design pretty much, as far as I know, for at least the last generation. So I would love to see the Color Rush helmets, but not those all orange uniforms. Those can just be banished forever. Those were terrible.
I agree. I'm not a huge fan. Matthew Smith, good to see you, my friend, up there north of the 49th parallel in Canada. Appreciate you, my dog. Broncos country, it's not a geographic location. Zach, show them right there on the chest, dude. It's a state of being,
it's
baby.
A state of being, baby. State of being.
Matthew says, I want to say how happy I was to find this community a few months ago. Not many other Broncos fans up north, as you might imagine. Thanks for all you do. I hope you're okay with Canadian peso.
It's all good, Matthew.
Of course, dude. It all means the world to us. So thank you, Matthew. Seriously, and we're glad that you found us. Will Thacker jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. And that's a name actually I don't recognize. So welcome, dude.
Welcome.
Thank you on Super Chat. Connect with us on Twitter. He says, so what do you think happens to Locke when a new GM comes in, or does it just depend on who it is? It depends entirely on who it is, Zach.
Yeah, they'll have their own preferences and own opinions, and if they're given autonomy, they might want to replace number 3.
All right, before we dip out of here, I think we're caught up. I want to bring to everyone's attention, if you have a subscription to The Athletic, all right, this is The Athletic. It costs money to read anything that they publish. You got to find this article that was written in September by Dan Pompei, all right, and the title is Through Football and Family, Bears executive Champ Kelly has found his calling. This article, it's long, all right, but that's the format that The Athletic, that's the little niche they've carved out, long form storytelling. Not so much X's and O's and stuff like that. It's about long form storytelling. And this is just a great piece about Champ Kelly, Zach. And I forgot to mention this to you earlier, but I'll send you the link to read. But it's just phenomenal background on this guy, how he kind of cracked into the NFL and his path and whatnot. And one thing really interesting about this guy that makes him attractive as a GM candidate for all teams, including the Broncos, is he has a technology background. So not only is he obviously a college graduate and all that, but his first job was to work at IBM, which initially was his dream, aside from football, was to work at IBM. Because as you learn in this story, one day he's at home, he's a kid, and he's chilling at home, and a car in his neighborhood, which was not a well-to-do neighborhood, it's kind of a poor neighborhood. A dude rolls up in a Lexus, which you don't see in those neighborhoods, as he talks about. It was noteworthy, and he goes, "I wonder what that guy does for a living." And someone goes, "Oh, he works for IBM." And he goes, "I'm going to work for IBM someday." So he did. He's got this huge background on technology, and this piece illustrates, Zach, how modern NFL front offices are looking for GMs who aren't just going through, stacks of paper on scouting reports, right, but they can do all the old traditional methods of scouting and weave that into technology. So really an article I couldn't recommend more.
And another thing is he has great interpersonal skills. That's one of his greatest assets, is his development and his relationship with players and coaches and owners and executives. And it's what you saw in the picture right there. His players and the guys that he's worked with, they all rave about them. So the Broncos could do a lot worse. As long as it's not Dave Ziegler, Chad, from the Patriots. I want nothing to do with him at all.
I agree. I'm not in on Ziegler, and I think they're going to try and find a way to keep him after Nick
Caserio left for Texans. Yeah, that's true.
Took the Texans GM job. But anyway, check out that article. And then we got this from Cody on the way out. Appreciate that, my friend. He says, just saying hi from minus 30 in Prudhoe. Wow. Is this how you pronounce it? Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. Hashtag state of being, man. It really is a worldwide community, Zach.
Minus 30. Cody, stay warm, man. Bundle up.
I'm about to go dead on my computer, so grab one real quick.
All right, let's go through the questions here. What else you guys got? We're about to hop off in a few minutes. Last pod before tomorrow night. I think we got all the supers. We got we got Matthew, Canadian pesos. Anything else? Please bring back the Orange Crush uniform. Yeah, that'd be, I don't know about that.
All right, guys, we got to dip out of here. Thanks to each and every one of you for spending some time with us here. Yeah, we waited until the very end to even mention Ziegler here, but last thing I want to show, actually, I almost forgot. So here's what's coming down the pike for your Denver Broncos, courtesy of Mike Kliss. Broncos GM committee, which is, so who's doing the hiring, who's going to be in on these interviews? Ellis Elway, Vic Fangio, and Patrick Smythe, VP of Communications. He's the PR chief. Have some Zoom interviews scheduled for Friday, Saturday. Might have one tomorrow in person with the final one or two early next week. So they're expecting the final interviews to be early next week, Zach, which tells me I think that Shanahan is stiff-arming on Peters in all likelihood. But I could be completely misreading that. Maybe Peters just doesn't want to come back to Denver. And if I had to put my money on it right now, I'm going to say it's coming down to Champ Kelly and Terry Fontenot.
Yeah, and I do think, he's not my number one candidate, but I do think the guy will be Champ Kelly when the dust settles.
Last thing, I almost forgot too. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. So recently, the front page of our website changed, and instead of over here, it's saying SI, it says Fan Nation, and then also the ability to make comments and whatnot went away. This transitioned yesterday. And basically what it is it's all still Sports Illustrated and all that stuff, but they're rolling out is SI. We're rolling out a new property, a new brand, which all the individual team sites are going to fall under, called Fan Nation. And it's all under the Sports Illustrated banner and umbrella and whatnot. But it has the front end presentation, the technology the engineers are using has a little bit different, just different pros and cons. One of them initially is the lack for comments, but that is going to be fixed very, very soon. As soon as this week, we're going to be able to go back to the way we've always done it for all of our great community members to comment on every single article. So just bear with us the next few days. That'll be fixed here in the near future. And just like always, you'll be able to read Zach's article talking about, Fangio speaks to challenge of Drew Lock's future and say, wait a minute, Zach, I disagree with your premise or whatever, right? So just bear with us on that. But it's an exciting, fun change. We're really excited about it. And it's going to be fun to build something new and lead the way, because Mile High Huddle is the number one team site on the Sports Illustrated network. We have been since we joined it about, 18, 19 months ago. So we're excited to help lead the way here on this new property called Fan Nation. And so, Zach, it's going to be a gas, but there's just going to be a couple of dips as we ramp up to getting it back to like it always was on comments.
Yeah, I for one, I think the layout is much snappier. It's cleaner. It's faster. The website overall, I'm actually pretty happy with it, Chad.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just a little FYI, because I had a lot of fans reach out to me going, "Hey, dude, why can't I comment? What the heck's going on?" So just have a little patience. A few days, that'll be fixed.
Trust me, guys. You'll be able to disagree with me very soon.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being with us. A mile high salute to our Super Chat superstars, which tonight, Zach, just unbelievable generosity from a lot of people. And Mark, man, just stunned, dude. I'm just stunned. I don't know what to say.
And on a day like today, when tensions were very high and it wasn't necessarily an overall great day for our country, Chad, the Broncos country always rises up and meets the challenge and blows us away. We are literally blown away after every single podcast. That's genuine and authentic. We cannot appreciate you enough.
Thank you, buddy. Love you. Love all of you. Yeah. Follow on Twitter at HuddleUpPod, also at Mile High Huddle. My partner, Zack Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL. Myself, at Chad and Jensen, and then our producer on vacation, at John K. MHH. And stay tuned, because we'll be back tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget our Facebook community. And even if you're not primarily used to watching the show on Facebook, maybe you're on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, or whatever, this new content we're rolling out starting Sunday at noon, that's going to be only for Facebook official supporters. You want in on that? It's really simple. You just go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You'll see the big blue button that says become a supporter. I think it's $5. You're in like Flint. So just consider that. And then last thing, make sure you like this video before you dip on out of here. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. And if we did a good job for you tonight, share it out there. Otherwise, Zach, hey, man, hope you have a decent close to what's been a very weird day in America, but a great night for us talking Broncos, and we'll reconvene tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope you have a great night, Chad. Everyone out there, Mark, every single Super Chat superstar, every single commenter out there, thank you so much. Mile High Mailbag tomorrow. Hit us up on Twitter if you have a question. If not, come in the chat. We'll be here. Take any question. Maybe have some more GM candidate news, Chad. But regardless, another Broncos podcast. Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys. And as always, go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.